and welcome to episode 3. In this episode, we're going to go over the track design and how I built the track. Before we get started, I want to say welcome. And what we're going to go over here is what I consider the different types of tracks and systems that people use that I've seen on the internet. So this is obviously what I came up with. Having a tracking here, have the motor separate from it, so it'll track as it goes around. But another way you can do it is if you want a larger vehicle with more people on it, maybe 4 or 5 people, what you'd want to consider doing is running 2 motors and a wooden track or a steel track if you can get one made. What it is you'll get 2 motors and then they'll actually pull the ride vehicle along the track. And so there's this type, and if you want a heavier duty, there's the bigger motors which are heavier duty. You can get these online. These are actually wheelchair motors. So either way, if you want to go that route, that's just going to take maybe a little bit bigger speed control. So those are the 2 that I considered, and I just decided to go ahead with the PEX, which is the regular PVC. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'll talk about how I started. What I did was once I decided on the PEX and I figured out the height of the track, what I did is I went around and I built my whole track. I built sections of wood, like this one right here. So what I did was, I just took 3/4 inch plywood and 2x3s. So I wanted it off the ground because my backyard kind of has some unlevel areas. Plus that way, if I want to add any sensors or switches or any kind of wiring, I can actually run it underneath the track. So I felt that would work very well. So what I did is once I had the first test track done, I decided to go ahead and map out and build all the sections in 4 foot by 4 foot squares, and I did the whole thing, the whole circumference of my track. And so once I built all the baseboards, I just pretty much got a pen and I drew out the track how I wanted to do it. So you see in this illustration right here, you can see how I had all the boards all laid out, and you can see how I pretty much, like I said, drew out the track, trying to keep it as centered as possible and not to turn too sharp because I knew it might get kind of bound up if you have a sharp turn. So we'll go ahead and go from there, and then I'll go ahead and show you how I actually put it together. So here we are. Here's a completed piece of track. There's a couple reasons why I opted to use the PEX. I used the 1-inch PEX. You can get it. I got it at Home Depot. One of the reasons is that when you connect the pieces together, you use these little connectors right here, which are actually on the inside of the pipe. So doing that takes away any interference when you have tracking for your tracking system that you use in your ride. The other reason I use the PEX is that you can actually buy a roll of 100 feet at Home Depot, like I said, for about $70. So that'll give you all your curves and turns. And the only difference is that when you're actually working with it, it is a little stiff, but if you just give a little extra motion in there, a little extra push, it's actually not too bad. So over here, I have a piece I have here. All I did is I took the nuts off the top, and here's your PEX right here, your PEX piece. And so I just got washers, just a regular nut. So here's a better close-up here. So you'll see on the bottom, the bolt goes all the way through. I use 3.5-inch bolts. And there's a washer. And then on top of the wood, there's another washer, a lock nut. Then a little ways up, I have a regular nut, which I can adjust with. Then I have another washer, and then I have the PEX itself, and then a lock nut on top. So the reason I did it this way is so I can raise the level of the track so it's even with my tracking system that's on my ride vehicle. Because what happened was, since I had the vehicle so high because of the transaxle and the other wheels, casters on it, I decided to go ahead and mount it flush with the bottom of the ride vehicle. The reason I did that one of the main reasons is that I didn't want to bring the tracking down, and I knew it was going to have a lot of torque on it, and I didn't want it to maybe bend or break or try to come off. So I mounted it to the floor of the ride vehicle so it's solid. And then when I was building the track, while I was doing all this, I made myself a little jig here because I actually found the exact height I needed. So that way, when I assemble my track, all I got to do is put the nuts on kind of like far down, like near the bottom, with the washers, and then I put my PEX on, and then once I put the bolts on top, I can actually pull it up and line it up, and then adjust my nuts on the bottom here to make it taut. So once you do that, you just as you're going along, just make sure you got the same height, and that way there's no interference problems. Now, I did say I used a 3.5 inch bolt for this, but it's actually about 3 inches on my actual design. But what I did is I just got an angle grinder and I just cut the tops off, because I was having a little trouble with some of them, especially some of the curves. They're sticking up a little too far and I couldn't get the nuts started. So once I did that, I just kind of chopped them straight off. So on the video here, you'll see, here's my ride vehicle going around the completed track. This is before I painted everything and got it all done. So at this point, I did not have the pieces bolted together. So I was actually just, I had them together with the adapters. So I just wanted to make sure that everything was working right. It wasn't going to bind up. So that was pretty successful. I had 1 or 2 places that are kind of an S-curve that I had some trouble. Oh, what I didn't tell you is that not only is this 3/4 inch, it's actually a wafer board. It's actually like a floorboard. So I use a floorboard, and to give it traction, I bought porch paint that has a grit in it, like a grip, like a grippy grip. So it's like a sand or something in there. And once I put it on there, I had no problems with it slipping or having any trouble going around the track. So, I mean, basically that's it. So I want to thank you for joining me in this episode. If there's any questions or things you want to ask me about as far as the track design, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. And on our next episode, we're going to talk about the control panel and how I constructed it and what I used and all that good stuff. So that'll wrap it up for this episode. So thank you for watching, and stay spooky.